Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox. The time 11:33 over on the East Coast and 8:33 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here to bring you all of your top stories from across the country and across the world. Take a look at this video here as cleanup from the extreme flooding in Vermont will take a long time. Storms dumping up to 2 months worth of rain in a couple of days in parts of the region earlier this month, surpassing the amount that even fell when Tropical Storm Irene struck there in 2011, causing extreme flooding. I do want to bring in U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to talk a little bit more about the situation there and how the government is working to help. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. So first off, you can see those images in the video, but I imagine that it's a lot different to actually be there in person and see it firsthand.
Yeah, the images are shocking, and it's similar when you're on the ground. The big difference from being there earlier this week was to spend time with the people who have been impacted and to see the businesses that have been impacted. If you go around downtown in Montpelier, the state capital now, the floodwaters have receded from where they are in some of those images. But what you now see is a pile in front of every small business in the main part of the town with everything from office furniture to possessions that have been destroyed by the flood waters. The nearby community of Barry, very hard hit. And as we went into the region of the state they call the Northeast Kingdom, saw things like a hotel, a small hotel that a small business, the couple had set up as a small business. Half of it had fallen into the river, been carried off by the floodwaters. So really alarming to see what happened on the ground, but also encouraging to see the spirit of the communities and the teamwork that is going on, helping people put their lives and their businesses back together and get back as quickly as possible to normal. And of course, we want to do everything we can on the federal side to help with that process.
And that's what I was going to ask next. When you're talking about federal funding and things of that nature, what is the federal government doing to help with those roads that have washed away, the bridges and things of that nature?
Well, of course, that's the part where our department is the most involved, although there is a whole of government effort led by FEMA to provide a number of different forms of disaster response and support, hundreds of people on the ground helping with that. But of course, I was there largely to assess the work that needs to happen with regard to roads. Also, railroads have been undermined. Those are private, but the roads are publicly funded. So what we have is a program called Emergency Relief. We have two pathways to get money quickly to the state, one called quick release funding and another for the longer term. And we are right now working through the process to make sure that those reimbursements will be timely, but they're wasting no time in getting down to work. Already had seen roads that had been undermined or washed out just days or really you could count it in hours before my visit, had already been restored by hardworking crews. But of course, those are temporary fixes. They need to make permanent repairs as they go forward. What they need to do now is work through the priority, the things that need to be done right away in order to get traffic moving, allow the economy to rebound, and then other areas that are still very important but can wait a little bit longer. One thing we saw that they're taking a lot of pride on, and I know the governor is looking forward to launching it, is a multi-use trail that is about over 90 miles long. It's years in the making, and they believe is going to create a real economic boost to that region. Unfortunately, the opening of that trail will have to be delayed because of the impacts, including a bridge that was destroyed by the flood. But that's an example of something that may not be as immediate as an emergency restoration of kind of same-day work to get emergency vehicles to where they're going, but very important to the economy and something else that we want to make sure they succeed with as they work toward getting back to normal and growing again in that region.
And why is it so important for you specifically to respond so quickly to the emergencies like this and to be able to tour the damage and see the aftermath?
Well, you know, traditionally, transportation secretaries have, in recent decades, rarely gone directly to disaster sites. And I try to make a point of staying out of the way of FEMA, first responders, and others who are dealing with the immediate aftermath. But in this case and other cases recently, I found it's increasingly valuable to have that on-the-ground presence, partly because it connects me to the questions that are sometimes unofficial that we can help answer or cut through red tape for local government and state government, and partly just to make sure that the community sees the importance of this to the administration. You know, you got a community there that's been through a lot, and they're doing everything right in terms of supporting each other. We want to make sure that they have an understanding of the support they can expect from our administration as well.
And I want to ask you a more broad question, my last question for you here. What's been your biggest challenge with helping to fix transportation issues across the country, all across America?
Well, we're dealing with transportation infrastructure across America that has deteriorated and fallen into disrepair. And then that's being compounded by the increasingly frequent and severe weather we're seeing, like what happened in Vermont. I'll give you another example. One of the largest projects needing support is a tunnel connecting New Jersey commuters and New York commuters together. And that was already aging, already needed work, but then Superstorm Sandy caused salt water to get into that and accelerated its deterioration, which is one of the reasons why it needs repair. So whether we're in small rural communities or in big cities, everywhere we go, we see that we're paying the price and making up for lost time from that underinvestment that happened over the years. But the good news is now we have so much more funding to help with. It's not all going to happen overnight, but because of the bipartisan work, not just President Biden's leadership, but a lot of Republicans coming across the aisle to work with Democrats to get this done, we are able to restore what has been damaged and get ahead of the next extreme event by investing specifically in resilience, because we know things that we didn't know 100 years ago about where a road ought to go. And if a 100-year flood is turning into an annual event, let's make sure that we reinforce our infrastructure accordingly so we're not picking up the pieces year after year.
All right, Pete Buttigieg, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. Is there anything else that you want to add about this before I let you go?
Yeah, I want to emphasize that as we go further into summer, unfortunately, we can expect more extreme weather to have impacts on everything from people in the way of floodwaters to airline passengers who may be impacted by severe storms. We're going to stand ready to do everything we can to mitigate those impacts while investing for the long run to make sure that our transportation systems are less vulnerable in the first place.
All right, thank you again for taking the time to join us.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.